What is your major malfunction, you absurd little man?
The chapter quote here is rather apt. Well, that was unexpected, and indeed, Beihei's arrival was indeed unexpected. Of course, the Valhallans don't take too kindly to this, and of course don't let Cain get arrested. Whereupon Beihei proves his complete idiocy by telling the 3 or so Tellarans to shoot every single person that came on that dropship. And that dropship held over 100 different soldiers. Really, that's got to be one of the dumbest things anyone has ever uttered. And I'm certain to everyone's complete lack of surprise, Cain doesn't get arrested, and the Tellarans just sort of follow along with Cain. That unpleasant encounter behind them, the Valhallans, with Beihei in tow, begin to fight into the ship in order to try and find the last sacrificial chamber. Now, they eventually penetrate rather far, where something rather odd happens. Essentially, Beihei was trying to interrogate a Chaos cultist, whereupon said cultist decided to lunge and give him a nice kiss right on the lips.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, of course not.
And if it couldn't get any more funnier, Cain decides to jump in with, when you've quite finished enjoying yourself, do you think we might get on? Planet to save, demon summoning to stop, remember? And so they continue to fight through the vessel, and they finally reach the main chamber, where the cultists begin shouting, "She comes! She comes!"
Relax, don't you rest when you wanna go to rest. Relax, don't you rest when you wanna go.
And with that final iteration, a demon was created. A demon who had been haunting Cyphes' dreams for decades. And of course we go through the whole villain, "you will die" speech. But eventually we finally get to the
Final battle.
After the long and tiresome goat fest ended, I simply stated, "My soul is my own, and I'm keeping it." Whereupon I brought up my last pistol and fired. The beast appeared to be unfazed, and responded by saying, "You really are tiresome." And continued by saying, "Let's see how you like being killed for a change, shall we?" And with that, she charged forward. I fired repeatedly, but they were just as ineffectual as the first. And then, as the demon grew closer, it suddenly stopped, and looked around in perplexity, and began to back away. She had come into contact with Jurgen's null psychic field. I then shouted, "It's now or never!" and swung my chainsword, eliciting a gout of ichor from one of the reaching hands, and a squeal of outrage, which rang in my skull like an opera hitter singing and holding a perfect high note. "You can't do this! It's not fair!" the demon howled, bounding forward again. I dodged frantically and opened a slash across its leg. Before Jurgen could get a shot with his melter, the beast's long, sinuous tail slapped against the side of its head, knocking him to the ground. As I dived for the fallen melter, I noticed that Beihei was still standing there like a slack-jawed idiot. I then cried, "Shoot it, you moron!" He then fired a few poorly aimed shots, which got the beast's attention. I then hefted the melter and fired. A hole punched clean through the beast's chest, and any mortal creature would have certainly found such a wound instantly fatal. But the beast rallied and turned to face me once again, and stated, "Not this time." It had failed to notice Jurgen as it bounded towards me at preternatural speed. As Jurgen attempted to rise for the beast's earlier blow, he stumbled into the oncoming demon's leg, and it screeched as though he was white hot, and it leaped away with an expression I can only describe as terror on its face. That was all the opening I needed, and I triggered the melter again, peeling away half its face. I worked frantically to get another shot, but then its entire body erupted in spatters of ichor, and the crackle of las guns echoed around the chamber, and it even drowned out the shrieking of the doomed warp entity. For a moment, it writhed, tormented, unable to decide where to go, and then it vanished with a thunderclap of imploding air, thus returning to the miasma from whence it came. Now, one must remember that Beihei showed up to the mineral dredger with the express purpose of arresting Cyphes Cain. So, when Cain got back, he still had to face Beihei's accusations. Well, the trial went fairly well. Cain was found not guilty on all accounts, and Beihei was brought up on charges. But once again, we're shown that Cain actually uses his brain, as he thinks to himself that he's going to pull a few strings to get Beihei off, and stating that there's no point in letting them shoot him because he just might have learned something. And with that, Cain, Castine, and Brocklaw go to try and find a restaurant to conclude the mission in. And thus, one could indeed say that once again,
Mission complete!
And there you have it. Traitor's Hand. What is quite possibly one of the most exciting novels ever written. I mean, really, it's so fluid, it builds. That's really what sets it apart from others. It is fluid, with Kane going from place to place trying to figure out what's going on, and it builds as Kane unravels little bits of information here and there, and it finally caps it all off with a demon fight. Of course, that's not the only memorable moment. There is the really cool moment where that Chaos air car smashes into the governor's office, and Kane has to fight against those guys. Or at the very end, when Kane is saved by his soldiers. Now, that's cool, because you're not expecting that. You're expecting some huge boss fight that might end in Kane's death, but no. Just at the right time, here comes his soldiers, he shoots down the demon. Awesome, to say the least. For next time, I'm going to be reviewing a book called Wild Side. But for now, this is General Oz, wishing you good temple, good scarecrow, or whatever makes you happy.
Go now! Get to the chopper!